Today, I have the pleasure of introducing you to the one and only, well, maybe he's not the one and only, but the Data Dude. This gentleman's name is Jake Miknuk, and he loves numbers and analysts and all these kinds of things. And he's the guy that you can hire to explain to you all this data that perhaps your company has acquired. So rather than me messing this up, let's have Jake explain to us how he got his start in his profession. Welcome, Jake.
Hi, Nana. Pleasure to be here. I got started. I went to school for business analytics. I graduated from California State University, Fullerton. And they had an amazing analytics program down there. Did a lot of work with our business analytics group that there's a club that was on campus that I did a lot of work for. But I went a sales route actually initially when I was in college. So I was really heavily involved in a sales club that was there called the Sales Leadership Center. And if you go to Cal State Fullerton and you're a business major, highly recommend joining that club. It's very, very beneficial to my career. I've always been interested in analytics though, and I got the opportunity to intern for a company that sponsored that club called Alteryx. And they're the leader right now in self-service analytics. Which is they offer a platform that offers people to do data analytics without having to write any code. And so it makes it easier to jump into data analytics than a typical route where you have to do a lot of coding and it's kind of intimidating. And from there, I kind of always knew that I wanted to be an analyst. I wanted to be a consultant more than anything, kind of blend the sales skills together with being an analyst, and ended up at Tessellation, who's an Alteryx partner. It's just been an amazing experience. They opened up a position for an analyst for someone that didn't really have the experience, but loves data and working in that area. So here I am.
So tell us, what is your day-to-day like in your current position?
Yeah. So it's a lot right now of just training, learning how to use certain technologies, and kind of applying what I learned in school to some of the things that we use. So I have, working at Alteryx, I learned Alteryx quite a bit. And now I'm learning a few other technologies, Power BI and Tableau primarily. And then the other half of it is working with clients. So clients all over, from Fortune 500 companies down to small mom and pop shops, just kind of figuring out, delving into their data and helping them either build out graphs and visualizations so that they can see their data in a better way, or kind of any kind of project that they have that they need help with.
So what type of data are they wanting to analyze most frequently?
That's a good question. So that it ranges there as well. A lot of financial data. Excel spreadsheets are very common for people that keep data in. And now people are kind of moving into analyzing videos and pictures, PDFs, doing a lot of text analysis. So if you have a website that has reviews on it, doing analysis on kind of looking past just the 5-star ratings and going into the comments and seeing, is this positive, neutral, or negative, doing stuff like that. But there is such a wide variety of analytics that you can deploy.
So does it get as granular in terms of the comments with this word was used more often than this word, or not that much?
Yeah, it can get that granular. A lot of people like to see that as well. And there's a bunch of different ways to display that. You can do a word map, which is, it'll show the top 10 words that people commonly use. So a lot of people like to do that for Twitter, just to see, especially for an example, we did one last year with someone's Twitter. I think it was Mark Cuban. He wanted to see what people thought about him on a level of, I think it was like his political affiliation. And we created a word cloud for him that showed him pretty much all of kind of where he lied with his Twitter followers. I think that was one of our solutions engineers at Alteryx. His name is Brandon Bach, who created that. And that was a really fun project to see.
That is so cool. That was probably, I mean, what do you feed everything into the computer? Is that, or does somebody have to write the program first?
Yeah, so with that one, he used Alteryx, and what Alteryx did was connect to every website has something called an API, which is an application program interface that allows people to pull data from it. So he connected to Twitter via an API, pulled out data from it, and then did the analysis on the top 10 words that were coming out of it, and then created a word cloud and just kind of showed it to him in a easy visual way that didn't look too over the top, but it was a pretty neat project.
So at that point, the person can decide, I better cool it or tone it down over here. Is that
Yeah,
what
exactly.
happens?
Exactly.
Interesting. So, okay, so as a kid, tell us about your childhood. I mean, was there something about your childhood that indicated that today you'd be a data dude?
Yeah, I think so. I played baseball my entire life. I was left-handed, so it kind of lent itself well to getting a little further in baseball than I probably would have if I was right-handed. And I ended up being able to get to like a semi-professional level. And so I played for a very long time, and baseball is all statistics. And I always really liked statistics and just learning kind of how to use them in different applications. But baseball is always the most fun to use it in. And I met someone in college that worked for our baseball team who did a bunch. He was an analyst for our baseball team, and he showed me really the power of what you can do with analytics. And it was just, I think having that baseball background really lent itself to kind of pushing me into being an analyst.
So, I mean, like most of the companies that I know that I work with are smaller companies. And so are they robust enough to need a data analyst, or is it mostly bigger companies that would hire a data analyst?
That's a really good question. So I would say every company has to deal with data in some form. And most of the time, if you hire a data analyst or a data scientist is going to cost a lot more. They might not be as valuable to a smaller company. A data analyst, they'll be able to kind of go in and look at your data and kind of show you certain things in it. But really where I think smaller businesses are going to get a lot of value is teaching kind of everyone in the business and the organization how to produce graphs and other things that might show some business value so that they can make decisions on a better level. Because at this day and age, even if you're a small company, if you're not deploying some kind of analytics, you're falling behind. And that's something that's probably on everyone's mind right now. Do you teach people how to code and how to do things like that might take a lot more skill? There's not really a job market for that. Or do you teach people how to just use data and look at it and manipulate it and clean it in a way that can help you make business decisions?
And is this mostly centered around product sales?
It can be, but it can be a lot. It can be a lot more. Like we mentioned, looking at reviews and seeing kind of how customers view your product in the market. There's all kinds of different applications. So HR likes to see employee attrition. Finance likes to be able to create automated processes to, instead of having to spend 2 weeks on end of month reporting, they've got easy processes where you can just kind of plug in their data and their spreadsheets and pull out the reports that they need. There's all kinds of different things that you can do.
Fantastic. So if somebody's thinking about becoming a data dude, they go to college, and what types of things do they study?
Yeah, I would say there's 3 things that you want to learn in college or before. I mean, you can learn them online nowadays. YouTube is honestly one of the best things. My company, Tessellation, has a really great training program called Data Coach on a lot of different areas of analytics. But 3 main things that you'd probably want to learn are how to code at least better than a mathematician. So Python, R, and SQL coding are really popular nowadays. But also just being able to clean data, that's a huge one right now. A lot of data is just messy. And that's just the form of it right now. And if you learn how to clean data and prepare it so that you can look at it in a way that adds value, that's another huge thing to take away from when you're in college.
So you definitely need a college degree.
I would say so. I mean, there's a couple of different thoughts on that nowadays. Google just introduced their own kind of certification programs that are starting to displace college degrees. But I would say, as an analyst and a data scientist for sure should probably have an advanced degree, like a PhD.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there's just a lot of math that is involved in being a data scientist, but a data analyst, probably just a BA. But I know a lot of data analysts that didn't actually go to school for data at all. A lot of people went to school for either psychology or marketing, and were just kind of always like the data side of things and got into it later in their careers.
Interesting, interesting. When I was doing a little bit of research, Glassdoor says that data scientists have one of the best jobs. They just love what they do. Is that true for data analysts as well?
I would say so. I mean, I love it. If you're passionate about any job, I think it's good. Like if you flip burgers at McDonald's and you're really passionate about it, then it's a good job. But I would say data scientists sometimes run into problems where they specialize in a certain thing, and they can't really apply it. So sometimes they run into roadblocks there, but they do get paid a lot of money. So I think they're pretty happy with that. As a data analyst, there's just so much that you can work on. Every day can be different, and that's something that if you like being agile and being able to work on a bunch of different projects, then I think being an analyst would be a good job for you.
So when you're actually doing your work, is it a process? First I look at this and then I look at this. Is that how it works, or not necessarily?
Typically, when you're working with clients, and Tessellation has a great way of laying all of this out. Typically, it revolves around requirements gathering. So that's the first stage. It's where you're delving into what the customer wants. So whether if your client is trying to look for a particular dashboard that's showing them a certain metric or KPI, really getting granular into what they want, figuring that out. Normally you take that back and then start kind of building things. You can connect to their data sources, or if they send you the data that they're using, and then you start building things out. And it's always an iterative process. So you're constantly just getting feedback from your clients, figuring out, is this what you want? You're building things and you're going along this process, and then at the very end, you're not kind of just giving them a finished product, but they've been kind of there the whole time and they can see what you've been working on. So there's structure to it, but also your day-to-day as an analyst can change dramatically. So it's a little bit, what you're doing, but you still have to be kind of open to something can come up and you have to work on that as well.
So essentially, I mean, when you're doing your work, you have to be really focused. Is that right? I mean, you can't be multitasking. Is that accurate?
Yeah, a lot of the times you're kind of just focusing on one thing. A lot of us like to we'll put headphones on and listen to some classical music or something that just kind of gets us in the zone. And it's always, you're constantly just building things, breaking things, building them back, and you finally get a finished product.
So communication is critical, right?
Yeah.
Because if the consumer or the customer is giving you bad information or can't even express what they need, you're not going to get very far. Is that right?
Exactly. And one of my mentors this morning actually put it in a really good way. Her name's Autumn, and she was saying that when you're working with a client, sometimes think of it like if someone comes up to you and you're in college and it's your first year, you're a freshman, and they ask you, oh, what are you majoring in? What do you want to do with your degree? What do you want to be when you grow up? It seems like an interrogation, and it's kind of like, I don't know, like back up. Like I don't know the answers to those yet. I'm just going to college. I'm trying to figure it out. And sometimes you kind of need to take a step back. And if you're asking a client, what dashboard do you want to build? What do you want to look at right now? The client's probably going to push back and go, I don't know. Like that's why I called you to help us out. So really taking it back and asking kind of the questions of why, like what's motivating you to look at this? What does it look like now? What do you want it to look like? Just really kind of diving deeper and creating a better relationship. So communication is huge there.
In terms of getting a job with your company or a company similar to yours, what types of interview questions would a candidate run into?
Yeah. So one thing that I think is super valuable in this area and in analytics in general is creating projects and having those under your belt. So a lot of the interview questions will revolve around kind of what did you do in the past? What projects did you work on? Can you show us some of the things that you've worked on? My company in particular was, they looked at a few people that, there's a dashboard visualization company called Tableau that's really popular. And they've got an online community called Tableau Public. And you can upload your dashboards and things like that on that site. And you can become a featured author and things like that. And they were looking at people who were really active on that site and creating a lot of dashboards and things like that. So project-based anything is going to be really great in those interviews, just to be able to bring those up and talk about them, how you did them, how you worked with people to get it done. Most of the time when you're working on these things, it's not just it's not just you doing it, it's a whole team. So kind of talking about how you work with the team and how you all work to get this accomplished. And then just kind of talking about how you work within that space. So if you're becoming an analyst, it's a lot of kind of what is your background and why are you trying to get into analytics?
Are there any sort of internships that people could do while they're in college?
Yeah, there's a lot of internship. And actually for Tessellation, there's a younger girl. I think she's a senior or maybe a junior in college right now. And she started as a business development representative intern for Tessellation. And now she's doing the data scientist internship. So tons of different internships. I know that Alteryx has a lot of them too. Mainly focused around kind of more on the data science and programming side, but all kinds of analyst and data scientist internships out there. You just kind of have to look.
So how long has your title been, a data analyst, been around?
That's a really good question. I'd probably say like since there's probably been analysts that since like the 70s or 80s, but at probably longer than that. I mean, all kinds of analyzations get done like every day. Like I'm a huge fan of Sherlock Holmes, the books, and if like that guy's an analyst through and through. But I guess data analytics have kind of become a really popular thing with the internet boom. So being able to look at data on it from a computer and anything that's on a computer in any format. Yeah, I'd probably say like 2000s to now is when they've really seen their heyday.
It blew up. Yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
So what do you love most about your job? Is there some aspect of it that just at the end of the day you go, oh, today was great?
I'd probably say that almost every day when I end, but I'd say probably the best two things are one, I'm surrounded by incredibly talented and smart people on a day-to-day basis, people who are trying to push themselves to be better and to help others get better as well. And then the second thing is just being able to kind of take a problem that I never thought I'd be able to solve, or something that might seem like it's over my head, and figuring out, just putting the work into figuring it out, and getting an answer to something is just, it really just makes me excited.
Is this an 8 to 5 type of job, or do you all of a sudden find yourself working on something till midnight?
If you plan your days right and you put in the work, I think you can probably pull off a normal 8 to 5. But if you're kind of just curious and you're tinkering with things, you can really you can have some late nights. But it all kind of depends on how hard you want to work on something.
I see. So with this COVID and all that, you probably worked from home, is that right?
Yeah. Worked even when I was at Alteryx, I worked from home, and I was on the sales side. And now Tessellation is based in Minneapolis, and I'm in California. So it's a great. I personally really enjoy working from home. I think that it's really nice. There is some aspects of it that you miss by the camaraderie when you're meeting your employees and your peers and trying to form relationships with them. But I think the whole world has kind of gotten used to talking on Zoom a lot.
You know what's funny about Zoom is sometimes I think it's almost better because you're so focused on one person, you're not distracted by everything else that's going on around you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
And there's
funny,
different.
I'm in a networking group, and the group, they're like, oh my gosh, it's going to fall apart because we can't get together. But honestly, it's just booming on Zoom.
That's great. And I think that there are certain industries that really lends itself well to. I know sometimes it can be a detractor. I know that there was a study that just came out, and it was an analytics study, but it was they showed that people who have their faces really close to the camera like this,
Yeah.
it's really intimidating for people, and it causes their anxiety to shoot through the roof. And a lot of people that are stuck in meetings all the time are just really anxious. And so it's I think with COVID, a lot of business changed, and there's tons of data out there now that needs to be fixed, especially for doing forecasting. But there's a ton of data that came out of it showing how great working from home is for most people.
Oh, I mean, I'm running into that a lot. It's funny, people are like, how do you get a job when you need a remote job? But it's getting done all over the place.
Yeah, there's I think a lot more companies are open to it as well. I know that Spotify was one of the first to let their employees work from home and work remote, but still pay them the same prices that they would if they were coming into the San Francisco office. So that's kind of nice to know that you can work from home or work remote and still get the same salary living in an area that I know San Francisco is crazy expensive. So it's nice that they can still work there and make the same wages that they did before.
Yeah, and there's a lot less distractions. If anything, I think it's more productive.
Yeah, I would say I got a lot more done working from home than I did in the office settings. I know that I'm kind of more talkative sometimes. So a lot of times people will come by my desk and I'll just talk and talk, and I'll be working on something. And now working from home, it's nice to just be able to focus on something for a little bit, a few hours, and then kind of get out, maybe go take a walk, and then come right back to it.
Right. Well, cool. Is there anything else you want to share with our viewers about your career or thoughts on anything?
Yeah, I would say don't be intimidated by going into anything data related. If you have a passion for it, just pursue it. Just start. There's all kinds of free resources out there, and just get really good at doing one or two things, and pick a technology that you really like, and just have a passion for it. Come in every day, and whether you're working on something that if other people don't even like it, like if you think it's something that you're really passionate about, just really go for it. And don't think that if you're going down a road and in college and you're majoring in something that doesn't really fit you, don't think that that's what you have to go into. I know a lot of people who don't go into the career that their major is based off of. So just continue to work hard and be passionate, and then network. Doing this kind of stuff and having Nana help you out, I think is one of the biggest things in getting a job in this day and age, especially if people are going to be working remote. Make sure you have a good network, and you'll be good.
It's funny. I spoke to a woman the other day, and she's in her 60s. And her whole career started because her father, her mother, and her boyfriend in college were pushing the medical field. And so she became a nurse because that's what they wanted for her. And that was not what she should have done. And she wasted all these years doing something that wasn't her. just kind of like what you're saying. And again, I'm so about telling people you've got to have passion with whatever it is. And your advice is spot on. So I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, and thanks for having me. This is a really fun experience.
Well, great. Well, listen, I'm open. My goal is to interview 100 people so that we can really help other people get jobs and understand what other people do. So if you know anybody who wants to do this kind of interview, I would love to talk to them. And in the meantime, if somebody wants to ask you questions, is LinkedIn the best place for them to reach out to you?
Yeah, LinkedIn's the best place. You can follow me or connect with me. And if you have any questions about anything or you need some help, feel free to reach out to me.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Data Dude himself. This has been such a pleasure. I really appreciate it.
Definitely. The pleasure is all mine. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Have a good evening.
All right. Bye.
Bye.